afternoon and welcome into the Paladins Pro Circuit. As always, we are starting off in Europe today, and not as always, you are joined by Finch and Gore Miser. Gore, we have what seems like a bit of a mismatch based on the standings coming up here today, but I'm expecting it to still be an excellent match. ChromaSpace and Yoinkers will be the squad that we are watching today. Parallax and Carnage going to square off later on, then Flashpoint and Snappin to round out the day. And like I said, just kind of based on the standings, it seems like a mismatch. Is that how you expect this one to go? Or maybe can ChromaSpace maybe, give us a surprise here?
Yoinkers have had a really good track record the last few weeks. I mean, 3-0s through 3-1s, I think at worst. They're 9-1 overall in the standings, so it's difficult to bet against them as a team. But I will say, we're in this section of the league now where we're getting into the final few weeks, right? So it's triple headers throughout this phase, right? You're going to play everybody 3 times. Both of these have gone so far in favor of Yoinkers, but the first time they played Finch, it was at least a 3-2 where ChromaSpace were able to put up a little bit more of a fight. We'll have to see if they're able to bring that, because that was way back in the way before times. That was August 13th. It seems so long ago now that we started it up. So it's been a while since we've seen them put up as big a fight against Yoinkers as they could.
Take a look at this, though. Bright Marsh and Ice Mines both been banned out. A bit surprised to see those common ones taken out. So if this ends up going a bit against the grain and goes deeper into the map pool, like 4 or 5, you might see some interesting picks. But the first map we're going to be looking at is Jaguar Falls. And we always say, Gore, this is a great map to start off with that very first map. If ChromaSpace is going to give Yoinkers a bit of a run for their money, we might end up seeing that here. Or they might have some weirder map picks, weirder map picks kind of coming up later on that I think might help catch this Yoinkers squad off guard a bit.
And honestly, when you come to a map like Jag Falls, like you said, it maybe allows you a little bit of flexibility. I think that's what ChromaSpace have been playing with really all year, mainly this phase. I feel like there was sometimes you watch the drafts and you lean back and you go, okay, what are you doing here? And sometimes it's a good what are you doing, and sometimes it's not a good what are you doing. It's a weird shuffle where they are more willing, I think, to go out on a limb and test things that maybe aren't really going to be as tried and true, definitely aren't going to be something that you get to see all the time, and sometimes they make it work. I mean, they're 13 and 25 total in maps, so, they've been able to get quite a few out there. I'm interested to see what they pull out for us here, because I think this is a map that does facilitate their style of play.
Yeah, I'm interested to see as well. I mean, obviously Victor Vivian both open, only Corvus banned out, so Genos still open, but what about these tanks as well? It's always interesting where the Inara goes, and what are the tanks picked up to respond to it? Is Ashe going to show up? I mean, the best, at least as far as I've been able to tell, off tank there is out there, certainly up there. So a lot of things to kind of pick from here from Yoinkers in this top spot. I would not blame them, though, if they wanted to grab this Genos, because Genos would be, I think, the champion that is probably the highest value pick over what is next available, but you don't always want to grab it. It also is nice to take it away and make sure that if they do end up with a Victor Vivian on the other side, they're not getting amplified then by that Genos.
It's the interesting dynamic of I need to scoop Genos up. We've also seen a lot of teams, and honestly, any team with Ovim on it, I'm never going to put it past them. First pick Inara in the last few weeks.
Sure.
So she's kind of skyrocketed towards the top. Sometimes even over the healers, even though it's been confusing. Victor and Vivian, as you had highlighted, are both very, very prominent as of right now. Jag Falls, if you're really willing to go out on a limb, we've seen some pocket picks that have come through. Maybe you don't highlight the Victor and the Vivian. Maybe you're saving it for something kind of more niche, like the snipers we've seen pulled out here. Strix making a few rare appearances on this map. But realistically, the top 4 should be any of those champions outside of Strix named. In any order, really, I would be okay with it. If you want to go Victor or a Vivian first pick, I think it's solid on this map. Although for Jag Falls, Vivian has always taken that precedent, especially in Europe. I think she fits kind of a similar role that Ruckus would, and since Ruckus is usually banned out, you can kind of use that to make it up. You're not going to have the same tankiness, and you're not going to have the same dashes, but the damage output is going to be roughly the same, especially when those Sentinels are online, and your inability to get kind of tanked down, I guess, like flanked, demolished, no one can run over you, you're Vivian, you're a shield, you kill them before they get there, I think is the strength that she's able to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, right, that goes along with taking this Vivian here, potentially, if you want that to be your first pick overall. I mean, it's hard not to say a lot about Barrage as well, if you particularly want this Victor and how strong a tool that can be on Jag Falls. And we've seen a lot of different shades of what a map Jag Falls can be these last couple of weeks. Dave and I had a 3-3 that went all the way to that final point, 99-99, the tail end. But we also had some Jag Falls where teams are running over the opposition, right? Capping mid, then getting out in front and setting setting up for a really aggressive offense on the back of that mid cap as well. So there's a lot of different ways that Jag Falls can unfurl. So I guess it sort of depends from the beginning of it on what type of map you're trying to have. Is it going to be a more long sort of attrition one where you need someone on the point who can tough it out, who can help get all this healing coming in as well and buy tons of time, or are you trying to run over them with some triple DPS? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can try and go about it.
Yeah, and because of the way it can shuffle, especially, again, for a team like ChromaSpace that has been very willing to flop things around, kind of expect anything. I mean, this is one of those maps where, you know, I guess if we're in Brazil, I'm expecting Lex. If we're in North America or just last year in general, you can maybe see Moji come through, although with nerfs, I doubt she's going to be showing herself for a little while as of right now. But, you know, you pick up this Genos, as we had kind of highlighted earlier, as maybe being the most prominent first pick still available for you.
Sure.
But you lose out on an Inara Victor, which is probably one of the most devastating combos to come through. Inara works well, especially on this map with things like Grover, so you don't even have to prioritize that healer.
Yeah.
Realistically, you're just stripping away, I think, as you had said earlier, that Luminary boost from being on that side and enabling them even further.
And clearly, you can see how valuable it is with them taking that Genos first overall. It does mean that Yoinkers is going to be a little bit behind in terms of the point tank conversation, obviously, with them having to give up the Inara. So we'll see where they go. Ashe comes in, but I don't know if this is necessarily the point tank. Certainly could be an off tank, but it could also just be that they're going to run, you know, triple DPS with some, you know, a support there with the Genos and have Ashe be their solo tank. So we're still not 100% sure what we might see from this Yoinkers squad. But, Gore, you've been doing this a long time. Obviously, the Grover are going to come through with that Inara, and now they have a great team fighting composition over there for Chroma.
Look, and I can even tell you, I can trace it back to the update. I don't know the number, but when Grover on this map, alongside Pip, it was a change that affected both of them, but when Grover specifically shot up was when his heal was able to go through walls. And then it's like all of a sudden you can be in cover and still get your tank while you're playing on this map. It really enabled things to not only for Grover to be more played, but also to showcase how aggressive he can be. A lot of the times we'll see Genos, it was Genos Maldamba, right? It's always been that fight. And Maldamba would come in with more healing, Genos would come in with more damage, and that was usually the trade you'd make. Grover kind of brings it both, and I actually really like him in this lineup.
Yeah, Grover can be a great sort of utility guy in your roster and can still provide, as you covered there, some of that damage. But taking a look over here at the Yoinkers, they are going to be running 2 tank, but it's the Barik. A little bit deeper, I think, into that point tank pool than perhaps you'd like to go. But with Barik up front, the Ashe kind of moving on the side, maybe alongside this Eevee, Yoinkers could have a pretty potent dive between those two if that's going to be the combination, though they are going to deal with these Atlas walls and some BK bombs.
Look, track record absolutely indicates that Yoinkers should just decimate ChromaSpace, right, throughout this set. But draft-wise, at least as long as ChromaSpace have exactly what I saw there at the very end, and a Bomb King on here, yeah, they might not get the Luminary boost for him, but Bomb King, Victor, and Nara, I'm just having trouble arguing against a draft like that on Jag Falls, Finch. I mean, it just seems like it's going to be good for them. And so I'm excited to see what they can do here. They are one of the few teams that's been able to push Yoinkers to that edge and, you know, cause them a little bit of trouble overall. And you have to look at it, Yoinkers hasn't lost since week 3 of this phase to Interstellar. So maybe they're going to give them a run for their money here.
This could be that chance. Jag Falls will be our map number 1 to see if maybe Yoinkers can hold on to that number 1 spot, continue to dominate ChromaSpace in the matchup as we have seen, and it will be this Barik for them that will be having to shoulder a lot of that burden. Meanwhile, it is the Inara and the Atlas on that other side. We'll ride along with Logi here first, though, as he makes his way around. Has to come back. They don't find much. But as expected, is the Ashe and the Eevee moving together, at least for now. But they're taking a lot of damage over here, so they're going to have to give up a little bit of positioning. And Ovum makes good on that damage. Good Lad going down first, but Logi gets a kill in return, so 1 tank on each side has been taken away. And ChromaSpace still holding on to this mid-control. Looks like Etsu and Prosper want to try and move over to the right side a little bit, and they sure will do it. Grover taking quite a bit of damage. Everyone's struggling, and Prosper gets him into the sight lines, but they end up losing Friezo in the back. That's Adium that was able to get the kill. ChromaSpace finally have to give it some positioning, but they do a lot of damage first.
I will say they've made one drastic mistake on the side of ChromaSpace, and that was give Prosper Logic something like a Vivian with a Luminary boost. Yeah, you get rid of the Luminary boost there for a second, but it's definitely only going to delay the inevitable as opposed to stopping it. So I think he's just going to be a menace as they continue to dominate right now.
And great help here from Logi as well, who finds a double, taking care of Ethereal off to the right side of the fight. So ChromaSpace continue to be staggered. Logi continues to take the free poke, and Etsu gets rid of Nepo on the other side. Now Prosper can step forward a little bit, has some breathing room, forces that Atlas back into the waiting clutches of Logi and Etsu working together, and Yoinkers are able to get the objective captured, and Good Lad gets the last bit of damage onto 2, gets rid of Adium and Correal to open things up a bit. And I talked about how sometimes Jaguar Falls can look like this score. If you win that mid-fight handily, suddenly it's all engines firing.
I mean, yeah, it gets you perfectly fired up, like you said, for momentum to be on your side. I mean, look how aggressive Yoinkers are right now. You're not supposed to be fighting inside the base just yet. Your payload isn't even switching from dirt to rock. You still have to make it through the archway under the catwalk, so you have a long way to go.
Whoa.
I think they're starting to pay for it a little bit there with Logi going down. But that's the other thing that's caught my eye, Finch. Logi, when we first started seeing them and talking about them as a player, it was always, oh yeah, they're this ranked monster hit scan player that kind of came out of nowhere, has just been grinding a whole ton, and so a team picked them up and finally were able to showcase what they can do. And now seeing them even switch onto an Eevee and having a pretty solid game on Eevee at that, on a map where she's not necessarily bad, not necessarily great, has been pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've been seeing a lot here from Yoinkers here so far, and it's got to involve every member. If you're going to be 9-1 at the top of the European standings, that's not an easy region to catch us up, though. ChromaSpace appeared to have a good defense core. I was happy to let you keep right on going, but here Yoinkers are right back underneath Arch, right? I mean, I thought they got wiped, but instead they're pushing forward. But that is a big barrage coming through from ChromaSpace, I believe, putting good damage in the other direction. But Good Lad's still here. Logi still has decent positioning, but has to give that up, has to retreat back to the squad, and does make it back to safety through a pretty harrowing minefield of damage coming from ChromaSpace. So now this cart passed this final archway. They just have to round this final corner. They got 40 seconds to do it, Core.
I mean, and they've got the aggression on their side. No Sentinels available right now, and the only big ult that they have is the Assert Dominance that they have just used the Dome Shield. So something that can absolutely give you the space you need to close this out as a 2-0, but realistically, you don't need it. Logi just found a double kill.
Yeah, it might even be trying to find more. Etsu, though, prevents the triple from materializing, but you won't hear any complaints from Yoinkers. Adium and Ovum all go down, and Yoinkers have the conversion, and this is the dichotomy of Jaguar Falls. It could be a slow, grindy map, or it can be like this.
So if you're going to use your Assert Dominance like Etsu did at the end of the round, that's the only way to do it. Right outside their base, taking away their hope, right? Like, I mean, you are just stripping them down to basics at that point. Where, you know, the only goal for ChromaSpace there is to try and get past this Ashe, but she's going to bully you the minute you step out of there. You also noticed that they were running Indomitable, 50% lifesteal, alongside having the Genos behind, which already synergizes pretty well with Ashe since she's tanky enough as is and has a nice big shield to keep herself alive. It's going to allow them to continue getting aggressive. You come over to Prosper Logic running very simply. One step ahead 5. You can look at the other cards. They all matter a little bit, but realistically, one step ahead is like the must-have on Vivian right now. 30% move speed just keeps you zooming. I mean, look at this movement speed compared to, let's just say, your standard Vivian. It makes it so much easier to run people down and to escape, especially for someone who has no dash.
But they left Prosper alone in the back. Great work by Correal to push and to find that opening pick. Etsu drops as well to start that off course. So a nice little 2 for 0 in favor of ChromaSpace. But I don't know if you can get too excited here, as obviously we do have a pause. We'll be trying to get these players back into the action momentarily. But ChromaSpace had mid control to start the last mid fight, right? They got up to 69% or so and then lost control. So this is par for the course, I suppose, if you're Yoinkers.
The very beginning of a round only matters if you get point control and you wipe the enemy team, right? Like, if you get all of these kills, which so far they've started off pretty well, then you get a lot of that percentage, especially with comeback mechanic. For ChromaSpace, this is a position, if you kill this Barrack, which they do, honestly, you should theoretically be able to close out this point, but you can't do it if Lutton kills.
Well, Logi does even drop the ultimate as well, but it's just not enough. They're able to withstand it and stay on the point anyway, but perhaps Logi's bought enough time. It cost him his life as Ovum gets the kill, and it isn't enough after all. But I always talk about how devastating it is to drop 2-0, because if they defend here, you go into the next mid-fight, and it's 3-1. You could just lose there.
Yeah, it's It's that weird, again, like evolution of Paladins as a whole, where what you're fighting against is not just the opponent, but sometimes the game as well. Like here, you're looking at this point fight, right? You're not just fighting some team that has 0 points and they're trying to get up to 2. You're fighting a team that has 0 points and the game is giving them a mechanic to help capture a little bit faster than you. And then, like you said, when you're down 3-1, you're also now fighting against them just straight up winning. Like, I mean, you make one mistake even with comeback mechanic in a 3-1 point fight, and all of a sudden they're able to walk up towards the top and just, again, seal the deal for a win. But it does depend on the defense here, and I'll be honest, they have a solid one if I'm looking at Yoinkers. Once you have Vivian, just Vivian on any side is going to be very solid. But I think Ashe also contributes to that. Barrack can contribute to that very well as well. So a lot of good damage, a lot of good tanks to try and withstand it. Barrack maybe more on that thin line edge of someone who's useful. I'm really thinking and factoring in Dome Shield more than what he's bringing in his regular kit. But all of those can really stall out at least 30 seconds each. And if you can do that, 2.5 minutes isn't anything.
Yeah, you can certainly keep ChromaSpace right on the defensive here, hold off and not let them into find this conversion. I think that's why you've got to do whatever it takes, man, to not give up that 2-0 to start the round, because it's such a difficult position to then come back from. Even with comeback mechanic, you helping on the midpoint, you would need then that next conversion to get back to a point where it feels like you're comfortably able to fight in. And as you sort of said, Yoinkers have plenty of tools on their side as we make our way back into the game to hold off. We're not seeing them just yet, though. ChromaSpace actually looking pretty good here with 3 kills coming their way and kind of opening things up here a little bit more. But yet again, Logi is still standing. Logi is the thorn in their side, and Logi is the one dropping to this Victor. So that is going to open things back up a bit more here for ChromaSpace if they don't get stalled at this next archway, which it looks like they already are.
I mean, this is that awkward moment. I've been looking it up and just kind of like getting the history realistically for Yoinkers, because a team that goes 9-1, specifically when it's not Clown Fiesta, who has a stacked lineup, it's always a little interesting to see, especially when you get, I want to say, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I want to say hodgepodge put together. Like, Yoinkers, as a team, you've got a bunch of players who have found success on their own with a beautiful exile there, by the way, by Atlas, trying to delay that one out. Not by much, but able to do so. But a couple of players that are maybe a little more unknown, a couple of players that have had their time in the light, and trying to figure out how to put it all together, right? And Yoinkers, when you put them on the list, at least name-wise, and you take away everything we know about this phase, in my mind, is a second or third place team, right? They're very solid, but maybe not going to be the very top. The fact that they've managed to get up to the top has been impressive. Eventually, they've only lost 8 maps this phase. I mean, that's crazy, ridiculous to think about, that you're week 11 in, and you've only lost 8 of those maps. In fact, 2 of them were to ChromaSpace, which is even crazier to me.
It is, right? They're not even losing a map a week. They're doing better than that. It's absolutely nuts how well this Yoinkers team has been playing, and I think ChromaSpace are getting a first-hand example of exactly that here right now, as Yoinkers keep them pushed back at this point. ChromaSpace are struggling to find any way through. Now seems pretty unlikely to find a conversion. You're basically trying to see if you can strip some ultimates from Yoinkers at this point, right? If you can make this costly, at least for them on the defense. But Prosper is still in the back. Well, he'll end up paying for his positioning this far back, but I don't even know if paying for it's the right word. Is anyone on ChromaSpace going to find a touch here at this point? Prosper has almost done enough. It looks like an overtime will be ticking through, so ChromaSpace has someone on the cart pushing it forward. It's not Ethereal who's in the back dealing with some extra work. It was the Grover, and they've dealt with him now. Ethereal does make his way there, but a bit of a sitting duck as more damage comes his way. A wall buys some time, but I think the inevitable poked its head through. Yoinkers got the defense, and now they're up 3-1.
Yeah, well played, I think, overall, just to see what they were able to do. Like you said, with Prosper being that deep, whenever the defending team is on the other side of, let's just call it the 50-yard line of the map, right, that's bad news for whichever team is getting aggressive. Or I guess there's like a simultaneous good news, bad news. Maybe they've just kind of rope-a-doped merry-go-round their way over there, and so you're in an advantageous position because they're not taking the defender's advantage that the base gives. They're fighting from the mid for some reason. But in a scenario like that, where you've got 2 or 3 of Yoinkers displaced in your backline as ChromaSpace, the other 2 over there on the payload, making it impossible for you to really do anything. You're sandwiched in. That's when things really fall apart. Now, I'm looking at Adium. I mean, this Bomb King, I love him on this map. It's his best map to perform on. He has to go big this round if they want to stay alive.
They're going to need him to absolutely show up, as once again, ChromaSpace with early mid-control. Whirlwind being used relatively early once again. And it works. It's enough for them to get rid of Good Lad. The King Bomb coming out from Adium. And he's in the back trying to see if he can perhaps get the better of Logi, the EV pilot. But so far, no good. Logi repositioning. And Logi gets rid of Adium. And it looks like the rest of the squad all showed up at the same moment. It's a double kill for Logi. Ethereal coming in to die on the point if possible, but now Yoinkers with complete mid-control. And this 66% gore, it came through with Fast Cap helping out. They're going to have to push through a lot.
And it's nothing to scoff at here. 66% gives you plenty of time. It's a long time for Yoinkers to catch up. So ChromaSpace should be able to get in and at least have one more good fight in them. But I mean, look at it. Yes, you still have a couple of ults available on the side of Yoinkers. One through time and space, and soon enough you'll have the Ice Storm.
Barrage comes through, but Prosper evades it perfectly. Logi gets the kill in the Ovum. Yes, they end up losing Etsu for it. It actually ends up being a bit of a checkerboard, but Yoinkers still have plenty of members still alive here in the mid. And Choreo can't push through because Prosper still stands. That means Yoinkers find the win. And despite taking the Anara and the Victor early, you still have a problem if this Victor drops down the Prosper. Or Vivian, excuse me.
Yeah, there's a certain point, yeah, like you said, Vivian for Prosper is insanely deadly, but also, like, that interaction at the end with the barrage up against him, you can't take Victor against the Victor player. I mean, he just knows your tricks. He knows what you're going to try to do. So I think that's a great showcase from Prosper, understanding how that matchup goes. Probably because he's been on the receiving end of it just as many times as he has been on the other side. But let's talk about it. I mean, 5, 4, and 10, we keep saying his name. A lot of the damage, I think, comes down from Prosper. But Logi was 16, 4, and 8. Like, Logi just had one of the best EV games I think we've gotten to see all phase. And again, from someone who at the beginning of the year was described to me as just another hit scan player, that's insane to think of.
Yeah, I mean, as we anticipated, Prosper had more damage, but it was Logi getting in and actually making sure those targets got finished off. They couldn't fall back to get any healing or regroup with the squad, and that's such critical work here from Logi that he was able to do. We saw him at the very start of this mid-fight, right? Take that 1v1 against the BK and take him out of the fight early.
I mean, consistently, like you said, being able to get back there and deal with the Bomb King. But I think also finding a lot of these niche little windows like that, right? Only one champion in the game that can close through that wall of gap, through that little window that was given by Ethereal. But, you know, able to get back there, harassing the Atlas several times, harassing the Victor several times as well. I think just making life hard for ChromaSpace. And honestly, that's what you want out of your EV player. You don't want them doing any of the, you know, like point blank, I'm trying to shoot you from the back line like we've seen sometimes happen and sometimes work out. For the most part, you just want them to be an absolute nuisance. Their factor is going to be partially in damage, partially in kill potential, but primarily in distraction factor. And when you have someone playing as well as Logi just did, it makes it so much easier to seal the deal and win the game.
It really does, Logi, a critical piece of that puzzle form. Really, everyone on Yoinkers playing well yet again, and that's how they end up finding the 4-1. We'll be going on to Stone Keep here next, Score. Another one of those maps where, not unlike Jaguar Falls, it's fairly heads up. Not unlike Jaguar Falls, Bomb King can do really well. I wonder if Adium might get a chance to try and run that back and have a bit more of an impactful one this time around here, Gore, or if maybe we'll see that Bomb King passed over altogether.
Dude, this is so when you're talking about impactful players, I think you have to look at Yoinkers and look at that damage duo again, because when I look down at those bans from ChromaSpace right now, those are bans that only come through to stop both of the players on Yoinkers. I think Logi, if you give the Kinessa over, is going to be an absolute menace, and the same thing can be said for Prosper with Vivian. So you have to isolate it there.
Wow.
But now I'm in a position where I get, what, Victor Genos? I'm not really that sad about it if I'm Yoinkers here.
Not at all. I mean, they might even want to take this Anara here as well. Depends on how they want to go. But I think I'm with you. In a world where the Vivian is banned, you really want that Victor on your side. And maybe, since ChromaSpace already has Corvus, you can wait on the Genos. I suppose we'll get an idea of what Yoinkers are looking to do. But I'm surprised Chroma decided to go with this Corvus right out of the gate. I know how strong he is right now and how he's one of the best pockets that's out there, Core. But you could potentially be giving a lot of good stuff away to Yoinkers here. But they don't want the Victor at all. It's the ROM instead.
This is, if I've learned anything from Yoinkers, they're A, calling a bluff, but B, they're willing to flex to Strix. Actually, I think I've seen them play more Strix on Stone Keep lately than I've seen them play Victor on Stone Keep. And so if that gets taken away by ChromaSpace, I don't think they're really going to be hurting. They're just going to instead pick up a sniper and maybe do even better because of it now, especially against an Eevee. It's a little iffy to try and pick Strix into an Eevee. You would want someone, I think maybe, I'm even going to go out on a limb and say Leon to help deal with this Eevee, someone that is an anti-flank. Cassie does very well at it as well, and both, I think, players there for Yoinkers are able to flex them out. I think in terms of controlling them, Cassie would be very solid against both Shaolin and Eevee, but Strix just seems to be their homestay, and again, has looked good for him in the past.
Yeah, it looks like they are indeed calling the bluff here a little bit. They'll take the Strix right away. I mean, I still think they could take the Victor here, right on the back of this Strix, right? But they'll go ahead and take the Genos here now. So now they have this damage amp working on their side. They have the Inara to sit on the point. They have the Rom to push forward and create some space. I know that ChromaSpace have the Sha, who can deal with the Rom relatively well, maybe stop that dash from coming through. The Eevee, you can dive in the back and try and get to the Strix, but it's hard not to be leaning Yoinkers here already.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just hard not to. Like you said, Rom, Inara, Strix, all with the Genos behind it. But I'll do my best to steal against the wave that is Yoinkers. And look at the draft on the other side. I mean, Fernando as a lone tank, especially against Rom, I think he's going to suffer. Whenever that ult comes up, your shield's gone, lower cooldown, so yeah, you'll have it back a little bit more often, but realistically, that's a good counter matchup for Yoinkers in the later rounds. Victor, Shaolin, Eevee, triple DPS with Corvus should do a lot of damage. It's one of those overwhelm you kind of strategies, and it's going to be difficult. I mean, you're trying to deal with Eevee that's in the back line, and then Shaolin and Victor able to kind of pincer damage you from two different angles. Shaolin even able to get aggressive alongside the Eevee. Same thing there for the Victor, even though they can both do long range or short range. But Strix going to be able to hover back, Andro going to be able to kind of play bodyguard and control the Eevee, and then this Rom, who's tanky enough, is going to be able to help keep the other one locked down for that tertiary damage. So there's a lot of merits to ChromaSpace and a lot of weaknesses to ChromaSpace. It just depends, I think, more on how Yoinkers play to control it. Otherwise, that draft can get out of hand really fast.
Well, Stone Keep is where we're heading for map number 2 here, Gore, and at least as far as I'm concerned, a lot of this is going to depend on how the Rom and the Andro move together, if they do indeed move together. If that combo is able to find a pick early on, maybe take away the Victor or the Corvus very early on in this map, or in this mid-fight, then the fight could go that direction in favor of Yoinkers right at the beginning. Logi played the Eevee last time, gives the Andro a try this time, and has an early church duel with the Eevee on the other side. Perhaps a shade of what he played back on Jag Falls. Creates some problems, but Logi's hurt already, and I think Logi knows. Trying to see if he can move to the back and get rid of this Eevee early. Can't do it. Instead, comes back to put some pick damage onto Ethereal, the only one out there at the beginning. And that means the early pick does favor Yoinkers, but not the way I thought. It's Etsu getting the kill into Ethereal, and now they've got some mid-control to work with.
Now they're getting good shots, again, in a great position to continue getting aggressive. Coriel opening up some space. You would originally think, and especially with another shot, that it would then convert to something insanely large for them, but it's 63% to 42. ChromaSpace are still playing catch-up right now.
They are, but they have regained some control, and Nepo making the Victor look good here on Stone Keep. Gets rid of Good Lad as well. Logi right back in, though. Gets rid of Adium, but doesn't have any backup yet, so ChromaSpace continue to accrue control here in the mid, and Yoinkers unable to find the touch until Prosper gets a kill. They are able to move one member in, and Coriel has to fall back. Nepo needs to win this, but can't. Logi comes over the top and gets rid of Nepo. Ovum, though, does get rid of the Strix elsewhere, but Etsu now posted up on the point. All the ChromaSpace stacked on this right side of Keep, and no touch will be found. A heartbreaker here for ChromaSpace. It really looked like they had control to Migor, but what a big fight for them. They got the one kill in mid, then the double in Keep, and that opened it up.
Just a really good re-engage coming down from Yoinkers, and the fact that you had to invest as many resources as you did to try and lock down the Strix, I think showcases where some of the problems went wrong, right? You just weren't quite able to find the kills you were looking for when you set out, and I think even more unfortunate, ChromaSpace, I saw Eevee blink forward, but she didn't get the touch onto the point. Wasn't there long enough, I think, to have it count, so didn't get the overtime and ends up just kind of handing that one over towards Yoinkers. When you have a flank, especially with the mobility that Eevee has, like her primary job in a 99-99 is to stop the other team. It's not to look for kills, it is to blink in, be an ice block on the point, make sure there's some overtime, and then blink on out of there. But the hat getting locked down, and now I think even more having a just rough game on this Eevee for Adium. It's making it a little bit easier. And with a beautiful seismic crash like that, ChromaSpace, they're falling back.
Yeah, that's enough for Obum to end up falling as well. It's that fight in left was so important, the one that we just saw where the Eevee gets there too late to help, drops the ultimate and then falls as well. That's the Shaw and Eevee dropped early, and now all the way up top is some space being bought here now for Yoinkers. Prosper has a long angle to work with and is starting to find some shots when they come out from behind the boxes. Logi gets rid of Ethereal, and the cart is right outside and will indeed go in. So now Yoinkers 2 maps in a row are able to find the 2-0 conversion to start it off.
That was a little gross, I'm going to be honest, but like in a good way, I guess is the only way to describe it. I mean, a headshot onto the Victor and just erasing Nepo from existence is maybe just a good kind of analogy for what Yoinkers are doing here. I mean, it just feels so solid from them. And yeah, you know what? We can talk about Prosper all day if we really wanted to, history-wise. I got to look at Logi. 9-2-3. This Andro is the saving grace, is the force factor that is keeping this team moving forward, is the thing that saved Prosper Logic in some of those fights. And while it might not be top damage, it's only 2K behind the Strix, which is impressive. And it's just so good coming down from Logi that these the two flank games, last game and this game so far, have just fit so perfectly hand in hand. And as long as they can win this matchup versus Eevee every time, the rest of the game becomes easy.
Well, the Eevee got some backup this time. The Shaw was there to provide some backup. So we saw Logi back up for a moment, but I guess he won it in the end. Gets rid of Coriel and Adium. Logi doing it all today. And they've already got the mid control. Absolutely nuts. The Eevee and the Andro back to back. And Yoinkers left scratching their heads. Almost another one coming through there for Logi. Not quite enough to get rid of Nepo on the other side, but they're already up to 57%. That ultimate from Frieza almost clipped them both, but they narrowly ended up avoiding it, and now Prosper getting back involved. Not going to lose the top damage just yet, as he's found a sick angle to get rid of Coriel yet again, who's hardly got to play Paladins today, since he's been getting handled so efficiently. And they're already way in the back. They haven't even gotten mid-control yet, Gordon, yet here they are, pushed into the courtyard, looking for more.
You know, there's certain ways to phrase it. There's probably way more in-depth ways I could describe this, but this is just good Paladins from Yoinkers. I mean, there's no other way to really dice it. Like, it's good shots, good angle play, good ability usage, as well as reading your opponents. I mean, there was a moment there, and it's something small, but you see this Genos just hide behind a tree. Why does he hide behind the tree? Because that barrage is trying to come down, and you can only target it if you can see them. So it forces Victor into an awkward position of, do you cancel your ult, or do you move into an unfavorable position to try and keep going? And it's things like that for Yoinkers that are making ChromaSpace suffer, because they can't win a fight when the other team is playing everything against you.
What a sequence there from Prosper. He ends up falling in the end, but he ends up getting so much attention. Coriel, though, by getting rid of him and Logi, have opened things up quite a bit. Nepo gets a kill onto the Genos as well, and we'll finally see this Yoinkers momentum slow down for a bit here. Good Lad get a kill into Coriel, because that's just Coriel's life here at this point, even in retreat. And even able to make it around the corner. Good Lad lives. Logi comes through and finds another kill, making a double as he gets rid of Ethereal as well. I thought ChromaSpace were getting a minute to breathe here, but apparently not. Etsu has made his way back through. Logi keeping the cart moving and daring this shot to poke his head out. He cannot afford to. This was supposed to be the time where I gave it back to you, Gore, where ChromaSpace had some defense, and unfortunately it's absolutely not. Yoinkers are right back in. Barrage even coming through to force them back. Nepo does get the kill on Etsu, desperately needed, and Yoinkers might have to slow their roll here for a moment after all.
But Good Lad being available to him keeps a tank presence in the area. If you can get a good opening kill from either Logi or Prosper, which they have one right now on to Coriel, you should still be able to get aggressive, especially with a good shot from Frieza. If you can find someone with that ult, it's going to be beautiful for him. He's fishing for it, Finch, but he's not quite going to find it. Either way, Inara's back in the fight.
Yeah, they didn't end up needing it, did they? Etsu gets a double. Prosper found one as well. It is just the Shaolin in the back, trying to hold. Oh, and had some help from the Eevee, but she falls to a perfect snipe. And Yoinkers, somehow improving from their 4-1 performance on Jaguar Falls, moved to 4-0 here on Stone Keep to make it 8-1 so far.
So I do want to spend time talking about how not great, or like, well, I guess how great Yoinkers played. I want to spend time away from that, but it's hard when they just 4-0 it, right? I think ChromaSpace come in with a good draft. Again, there's maybe a little bit of an iffy mark on the Fernando overall, but I think he does well enough into that lineup that if your DPS are able to pop off, then you're able to have a good moment. The problem is that you get, Prosper at 10-5. You get Logi at 14-4. When your damage is able to do that much, you're going to have trouble. But then you can even pull it back. I mean, Etsu's at 5-3. Some really good seismic crashes throughout that game from the Zanara to help set up a lot of those kills. And Goodlad was 6-1. I mean, Goodlad did not care about anybody that was standing in front of him, was making sure to keep him locked down. Again, the way this team plays together, especially on that map, just felt like a fluid machine more than anything. There were a couple of slip-ups, right? Every now and then maybe the gears didn't completely line together to go the way that they maybe would have expected or wanted. But either way, I just think it was clean play. The shots are all connecting, and they're connecting incredibly well. I think this is that play that originally had saved Prosper, at least for a little bit, and then translated into kind of a snowball of kills for Logi. What was it, 9-2 after the first round? If your Andro has a performance like that, then yeah, you're going to be able to walk in the payload at least for a 2-0. Absolutely should continue for a 4-0, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, Logi getting, a triple there, maybe even a fourth after time. For me, this has been all about how Goodlad and Logi have played together, man. They have been a dynamic duo roaming around the map, daring you to step to them and see if you can answer it. The way that they moved over and helped control this church side, and then even going beyond that, the left side over here around these stairs as well, where they were such a dominant force. So they got the kill onto the Shah and the EV back-to-back, right? Those types of maneuvers, those two moving together and being so hard to deal with, has been kind of the heart and soul together for me of this team so far here for Yoinkers, at least today in this match against ChromaSpace, where now they control this entire set so far, right? A 4-0 Stone Keep, now moving on to Splitstone, which can sometimes be an even more stalled out map than those first two, but can also be at that same pace if Yoinkers come in and play with as much control as we've seen them play with so far.
I'm almost at the point where I think if I'm ChromaSpace, I want to ban Andro on this map. I mean, this is a good map for Andro to be able to come through, and after that last performance, I don't know that I want to see another one from Yoinkers, because it might just be too much to handle if you are ChromaSpace. And again, Sniper's big on this map. Honestly, if you ban the Kinessa, you almost shoehorn yourself into something. This is something we see a lot of teams do. If you're going to ban one and you're not going to pick the other, then Yoinkers just have Strix and you don't have a Sniper, right? And admittedly, lately, we haven't seen as many Kinessa versus Strix matchups. It's usually like Victor versus Strix, Leon versus Strix. Kinessa has kind of fallen away just because she doesn't have that instant damage, has to charge those shots. But I think ChromaSpace, especially if you aren't going to pick it up soon, they might have just given away maybe an advantage that they could have had in a Sniper battle.
There's hope yet.
Looks like the Atlas could be the first pick here for ChromaSpace. But you had to think about how ChromaSpace were feeling going into map 2, right? Because, I mean, a lot's been left over now for Yoinkers, obviously, here with the Inara. Potentially even the Victor or Vivian as the response. But if you're ChromaSpace banning Vivian going into map 2, you're thinking, all right, Prosper is dealt with, right? We banned away the Vivian, but then it's Logi that's the problem on the Andro. And you're starting to see the conundrum that is this Yoinkers squad. And who do you spend your time banning when you only have 2? And now they're faced with a similar issue, right? Where potentially an Inara could come through alongside a Vivian, but it looks like between the Prosper and the Logi sort of problem, Yoinkers have decided to go with the Logi one, prioritize the Eevee for him, and dare ChromaSpace to deal with it.
Yeah, and again, on a map like this, I go back to, well, when it was in the PPL, right? Last year, if you had Eevee, the other team gets Maeve, and then it just depends on who of those two pops off. That literally would determine some of the games. It would just be, Logi here versus, I'm going to assume, Adium, since he was playing the Eevee last game, now on this Maeve, and which one has the better game, because they will absolutely set the pace for their team, and if they win that matchup, then they're able to then start to snowball, go back into the backline, deal with your DPS, your primary kind of long-range DPS, which could still be Victor, Vivian, Strix. I wouldn't be surprised if it came out for Yoinkers, especially since they just had a good game on it there on Stone Keep. And so if Eevee wins consistently, if Logi has the same games that we've seen these last two, and I'm sorry, but ChromaSpace are maybe getting put down into the dirt already.
It certainly could be a possibility here, right? You get the Dombo when you have the point tank to keep them up. That makes a ton of sense. It's Ying coming through here for ChromaSpace and World where Genos Corvus are both banned. And now Yoinkers have this has got to be the best frontline duo in the game, right? Between Inara and Ashe. Inara the point tank, Ashe the off tank. And now we'll get to see yet more of, I assume, this good lad Ashe, Eevee, Logi moving together, right? It's this two-man duo. And I don't know how you deal with it with ChromaSpace because they have not yet dealt with it all set.
Now, I will say, Maeve, Ying, both, I think, very, very great in this draft coming forward. I think even the Buck on this map for Splitstone, I think this is a really good damage and support combo that are coming down from ChromaSpace, especially Maeve because of that Midnight being able to bring an extra factor into the fight, strip away some vision for Yoinkers. But I don't think the tanks hold up anywhere near the same as Inara Ashe with a Damba behind them. So this is going to be very devastating, very difficult to deal with. I also love this. It's not something you get to see too often, but if you lock in Victor where the Eevee is, or where the Damba is, or where the Ashe is, then that Buck and admittedly this Maeve eat you alive. So instead you go for the hardest DPS to dive on if you're a flank and with Vivian, and you get her 10th pick in a meta where she has been #1 for a lot of this. I think Yoinkers just get to run away with this draft. ChromaSpace have a lot of work to do to try and take this one down.
Well, it's the same issue that has persisted all set long as we move on to map number 3, Splitstone Quarry. Prosper is the Vivian, and you must get back there and get to him, but can you do it faster than the Logi and Goodlad dive will be doing in the other direction to your backline? And more times than not, the answer is no. Prosper survives. Obviously, Logi Goodlad win their battle, and then you're left with this fractured, broken squad that cannot compete in the mid, where, oh, by the way, you're going to be trying to deal with an Inara that's healed up by this Damba. It feels like a problem with no real solution, at least not for Chroma, and they're going to deal with it right out of the gates here at the start of this mid fight.
Now, the good news is always it's Splitstone Quarry, so it's a longer map, more difficult to find 4 zeros on, but I think that still means ChromaSpace have a lot of work cut out for them. I mean, you don't want to get 4-0'd on this map, where it could very easily fall into control from ChromaSpace. And this is how you have to do it. Send Adium as well as this Buck into the back line here for Nepo, and just cause distraction the same way this Eevee would. You're keeping, right now, Logi away from the objective, which honestly is just a big win.
I suppose, but can you imagine hunting the Buck as the Eevee? I thought... Yeah, it's the other way around. They're all stuck over there at Lava Wall, as you kind of mentioned. No one really went over to the Bleachers side, so Adium will be the first one to do so, moving into the back, but there's plenty of backup there. It's Logi getting the first kill, Logi getting a double as he gets rid of Coriol again, so now they've got this mid control, and Logi loves when they have that. He can get aggressive, setting up for this kill into Ovum coming through from Prosper. Yes, Nepo eventually puts the damage into Logi, but Prosper still comfortably positioned upward, so he can be the one to get rid of Nepo. The same problem that's been there all set continues here on Splitstone, and already Yoinkers have control. They're up 1-0.
That's the upside downside. The reason Yoinkers are going to have better control of this map overall is that they can fight a little bit on lava, but they control Bleachers. I mean, there's nothing to contend for them over there. Prosper Logic gets to walk forward with an Inara, with a Muldamba, and just absolutely dominate anything over there in Bleachers, whereas Lava, like as you had highlighted, yeah, you can send Buck, Maeve, Ying, you know, even your Atlas if you want your Fernando over there, but Nando needs to go contest the point, otherwise Inara has it for free. And Bootius and Bleachers, who can really fight a Vivian point blank. I mean, maybe the Buck, but realistically, it's a dangerous game to be playing, and I think ChromaSpace maybe forfeit some of the pressure on the most important side of the map that I would give it to, just because of the fact that it's the one that overlooks the point the best.
Right, I mean, I think you're exactly right. That lava stack not really working there for Chroma at all, especially when Logi was able to defend that Maeve dive that was coming through. And, I mean, I'm not going to have time to talk about the path, am I? No, sir. Yoinkers are already starting to push forward here yet again. And look where ChromaSpace are. Kind of all stacked up and pushed too far back, and Prosper pushing through is able to start finding some angles to get some damage. Has been brought back by the Atlas, but it's not a problem at all. Prosper able to reposition, and Yoinkers are still about as comfortable as we've seen them. But Adium is caught by the Dread Serpent. I thought he had good positioning, but gets hit by the control, and Prosper able to find the 2 for 0, a double in his favor. Now with the Buck point blank, getting the better of that fight as well. Nepo goes down, and Yoinkers continuing to roll.
And as long as they can keep this pressure up, it's going to be solid for him. I mean, look, this Prosper Logic's alive still, and no one's able to get back there and deal with him. He's almost going to go down. He got a kill while he had that much health, though. It doesn't matter that he dies. He got rid of Adium. Yes, defender's advantage, the respawn proximity, all of that gets to come into, you know, factor and favor of ChromaSpace. But you can't have trades like that. Even if you get this defense, I think that just showcases where Yoinkers are in terms of strength right now and how difficult they are to take down.
I mean, we've talked about it plenty at this point, but going down 2-0 on this first mid, or after that first mid, is such a difficult position to fight back from, where even if you get the next mid and then lose the conversion, you're down 3-1. So that's why it's so critical that ChromaSpace are looking this good on the defense. They do still have the Ashe up here, but no touch comes through for ChromaSpace. Avert disaster, and are able to take this map to 1-1 instead.
I mean, it's just clean, I think, from Logi throughout that round. And same thing from Prosper, same thing from the front line. Again, Yoinkers are playing it very crisp overall. This ends up being like a full-on team wipe right after there. Triple kill ends very shortly for Logi, but I think the rest of the team, Prosper gets one, and I think Etsu was able to pick up the other. Maybe it was Good Lad. Either way, they got the full team wipe. And I think, honestly, Finch, that's... I mean, just more par for the course. Looking at the ults coming into this, right now Coriel has the Exiles, 3 good shots, could potentially take care of Good Lad and Etsu at the very beginning, try and deal with the DPS, or stop Logi and Prosper at the very beginning, try to get rid of the tanks, and then leave the DPS with nothing to fall back forward. You also have Ovim being able to bring in the Illusory Rift. A lot of healing can definitely help in these trades when there's an EV involved, but it can also go the other way around. I mean, they do some significant bursts, that 600 health per second. Is only going to be able to alleviate a little bit of the pressure.
But that's huge, though. The Buck and the Maeve, Adium, working together, were able to get rid of Logi early on this time around and not let him be that thorn in that side, not let him deal with Adium the way that he has so far. And Nepo able to get another kill. This time they've gotten rid of Good Lad. Now, they're not going to have the fast cap here on ChromaSpace. We're tied up in 1-1, but things are looking so much better. Coriel is taken care of, but Nepo, who's been a terror so far, has able to take care of Etsu as well. Now Nepo getting a double as he takes care of Logi, finally put down by Prosper, who gets a double kill of his own, and now Yoinkers with regained mid control can start to push forward, but that's what they're going to need to come through from Nepo. He has to make this Buck worthwhile and find these kills in the backline like he just did.
And another good showcase, I think, of the bleacher strength that Yoinkers can bring in, right? Prosper, if you can make it past the spots where this Maeve and Buck are just going to decimate you, then you can walk right into where your territory is. And I think locking down that point, bringing them back into it is huge, because the comeback potential for ChromaSpace is a little more difficult to pull off. Dread Serpent can buy some space. They have an Ice Storm. The Sentinels are still out.
Wow.
Nepo is the one that's a monster right now, Finch.
It's all Nepo, isn't it? Got rid of Logi at the start of this Prosper again. He's put them into this retake through nothing but sheer willpower. The overtime starting to tick down here as well. But as you mentioned, the Immortal coming up big here this time. Logi and Etsu, though, are able to push through. They lose Good Lad on the back of it, but as long as Etsu is still there, then Yoinkers still have a chance to win this. Logi coming over the top for damage, and Yoinkers are able to do enough. They capture the mid. That's impressive considering what Nepo was doing to them that round, but still, Yoinkers are able to push through.
I mean, just completely eviscerating people with that shotgun blast between him and Adium. A very good set of kills. And even now, the pressure's still there. I mean, look at all the damage they're pumping out. Nepo is playing like a completely different person. Where even in the last 2 games, this is what they've needed to see to get some spice of life back in here. But the problem is cool, you've bought 30 seconds now, 40 seconds, and the payload hasn't moved, but, you know, at the end of the day, you still lost the payload.
Right, isn't that ridiculous that Nepo had that good of a round, and yet they still end up losing the mid. Now, a 2-man seismic crash from Etsu on the back of that cap sets up a double kill for him. They end up getting Ovum eventually, the other one that was hit by that seismic crash, and hunting him down. And now Yoinkers again have some decent positioning on the back of their mid. Now, last time, ChromaSpace were able to find the defense score. They were able to even things back up to 1-1. But can they do it again? Can they prevent another 3-1 situation going into a mid? Well, Logi doing everything he can to prevent that. Plenty of damage onto the back line, but Nepo continues to be the man of the hour. Puts down Etsu, hashtag get Nepo some help, as he's doing everything he can to keep ChromaSpace in this one.
Holding on for dear life, right? With his nails dug in as deep as possible.
Yeah.
It's working so far, like you said, for the Buck. Maybe not so much for everybody else. Adium's had a pretty good round so far, but you can see this Mave maybe not clicking at the exact same time as Nepo. And that little bit of synergy, maybe disconnect, is making it difficult. That Immortal earlier this round from Ethereal really helped prolong things. But again, it just seems to be that Yoinkers are on top of the level of play. You come into it, you've got 3 ults available right now for ChromaSpace. And if you don't want this to be a 3-1, then you need to do something. Midnight's going to come out.
That was a big setback, but Nepo ends up falling either way. Now, right onto the actual cart is where we are. Dreadserpent coming out as well, but Adium, elusive, has been able to find his way to 2 kills at the back of this fight. But Etsu still full health in the middle of everybody, and they don't have enough damage to take care of this Inara. Now the Damba healing coming in as well. Finally, Nepo gets there and takes care of it, so that will be enough to get rid of Friezo. Etsu now left alone should fall eventually, and Nepo will be the one that puts in the last bit of damage. But even the Ashe is still here. Nepo gets the healing he needs. Not enough, though, to stop Good Lad, who gets a kill. Logi finds 1, and Yoinkers gets a conversion! Absolutely nuts! I thought Nepo had done enough!
I mean, that feels like it's going to fall down. You see the DPS walk back up, and I make a little bit of a joke. Yeah, guess who's back? It's your DPS for Yoinkers. They're going to be able to do something, right, in that situation. But Good Lad, I mean, 9-3 and 11, I think it really was Good Lad's presence there. And maybe more so the lack of damage being dealt to him. I mean, you saw, once Friezo got taken down, Etsu disappeared from the map. And then Logi, Prosper Logic, show back up again because they've respawned and remounted all the way back over to the side of the map. Good Lad did not watch his health bar decimate. Didn't have assert dominance either. That was just good positioning, I think, from the Ashe to make sure she stays alive there. And also, I think a great showcase in why you have to kill the supports first, if anything. Friezo, while he was alive, kept Etsu at full health like it was nothing. And so you have to target this Moldava.
Yeah, it felt a bit like frontline diff, backed up by the supports as Adium gets the better of Good Lad in that little skirmish, but Logi wants to make him pay for it. Good work so far by Adium to stay alive, and Logi cannot complete the job. That means Adium lives to get rid of Etsu as well. Kuriel takes care of Prosper. Another opening fight where ChromaSpace looked good, but this time Chroma have the fast cap to capitalize on it, so they're in a great spot to look to take this mid. Splitstone has been their best map so far by far here, Gore, and they've got to find a way to capitalize on it. They're up to 78%, but in comes Etsu to try and find a touch. Looks like he does, and things start to stall out on the mid. But how long can Etsu live? He moves in towards the fidget spinner. Wall buys him some time, but in comes Nepo. He's been the hero so far for ChromaSpace, finally able to melt down Etsu. That means the percent continuing to rack up. But in comes Logi, Prosper, as well as Good Lad, and they're going to make use of that time that Etsu bought them.
It's going to be another good kill for Nepo, this time on to Friezo. With Friezo, Prosper going down, it feels like it should slow up. But they don't have control of the point right now for ChromaSpace. It's well played from Yoinkers, but 99 to 57, I mean, they have to play this pristine, or else this is going to be a ChromaSpace point.
Getting that kill on the Logi was huge. You saw Nepo and Coriel putting in damage, and eventually Coriel gets the job done. Good Lad got to find his way to the point now that Etsu has dropped. They've done a good job of passing the baton between the two of them. They do kill Nepo in the back line, but on the mid, they'd already lost Good Lad, so it doesn't super matter that Nepo dropped. That means the mid goes over to ChromaSpace. And Gore, how important has Nepo been so far? Because this frontline dance between what's going on with the Inara and the Ashe has been difficult to deal with, but he has locked down the backline so far, has Nepo.
Yeah, I think Adium's having a solid game, but if Nepo wasn't playing at the level that they are right now, then this game would have been over in a 4-0. Like, yeah, it is Nepo purely, I think, in my mind, that are keeping them alive here. And more so, maybe a reason for Yoinkers to maybe try and turn around and isolate this Buck more than anything. Like, if it costs you some point percentage, that's fine if it means killing Nepo at this point, right? I think that's where you want to be because, I mean, look how aggressive they are in a world where Nepo was killed early on in the engagement. They're outside of ChromaSpace's base. This is a defense from Yoinkers right now, and ChromaSpace are trying to get back to the payload. That is the kind of aggression they have, unbridled aggression that is not going to be held back unless Nepo puts a cap on it. And as of right now, you know, this Buck has been successfully doing so the last couple of rounds. It might just be able to help him here. Of course, Yoinkers can't win on a defense, so right now they're just trying to figure out any way on the side of ChromaSpace to try and tie this up 3-3. Otherwise, they're going to the next round. Same scoreline up at the top. Nepo, once again, is the one to get things started for him.
Yeah, Nepo, Coriel did a good job of ceasing Prosper at the start of this little skirmish as well, which kind of opened all of this up. But Nepo is certainly the damage. ChromaSpace now finally, Gore, getting a chance to do a little bit of offense here themselves. They have not done really any of that all set long, but perhaps they can find a way to get a conversion here. But Goodlad has made his way down to contest Bleachers here a little bit more. That has pushed back ChromaSpace a bit. Up top, Friezo, though, keeping everyone healthy, so Prosper can be the turret in that normal sniper position. And that's worked here for Yoinkers. They've controlled this positioning a bit well. They'll fall back a bit. They know they've got 30 seconds to leverage. But now that this kill from Prosper has landed on the Coriel, they can push forward. Logi gets rid of Ovum. Logi gets a double as Ethereal falls as well. And Nepo will be right behind. And that's basically legitimately a full wipe here for the Yoinkers. Now they can start to get an aggressive zone. And any hopes of a ChromaSpace offense has just flown out of the window.
Yeah, all dashed in the blink of an eye is what it feels like. I mean, you might be able to get back for a touch, but good luck surviving a lot if you're there, and also good luck doing it without your flanks. Yeah, that's going to be put in the ground. Ethereal, though, nice couple of double kills there at the very end. Just,
okay.
I think to showcase that they have that capability. But now it's time to look towards the next round and what is going to be brought up, specifically in terms of the ults that are going to come down from ChromaSpace and the impact that they're going to have. Because right now, Nepo has been the talk of the town, and for good reason. It's really only Nepo right now, I think, that's pulling things back. 17, 14, and 12. Not a beautiful slash line, but one that's getting things done nonetheless. I mean, being part of, what is that, 29 kills total for the entire squad is huge for them. And I think that's going to open up a lot of the doors. Has Buck Wild available as well, so big playmaking potential available on that side. Adium with the Midnight could really combo those and make things work out well.
It depends on how this early fight up against Logi goes. Nepo and Logi have been dueling it out these last few fights. A little bit of help from Adium helping Nepo out, and they've won them. That's why these mid-fights have looked better. But Yoinkers are on the mid first. So here's the leap from Nepo. He's made his way into the back line, but who is there for him to put his damage into? Coriel trying to see if they can lock down Logi, but they get Prosper first, and that's just as good. They lose Coriel in trade, of course, but Prosper is so much of the damage here from Yoinkers. Dread Serpent's coming out. That provides a little bit of control, and Logi gets to Adium, but Nepo is still out there somewhere, outputting the damage, but Logi gets the better of him this time. It's a double coming out from Yoinkers' backline this time. Prosper is back into the fight as well. He gets Ethereal, and now it's disaster if you're ChromaSpace. Your early pick on the Prosper meant nothing. Logi picked up the pieces, finds a double, and just like that, Yoinkers have complete control, Gore, and I don't see them giving it up. Nepo's still here, though. And onto the point for a touch is going to be Adium to look for a little bit of overtime for a contest, but he has to retreat right away. Now the tanks have made it in, though. Coriel gets rid of Prosper, and maybe, just maybe, ChromaSpace can hold on to this one, but it's looking less and less likely as Logi does eventually get a kill onto Adium. A double, though, as he gets rid of Coriel as well. Now, this might be enough for Yoinkers to hold on throughout this overtime as long as they can get rid of this Nando on the point. But Ethereal, with a fadeaway shot, does get rid of Logi. Will that be enough? The overtime ticking as Adium, or rather Ovum, just sits on the point. Nepo goes down, and Yoinkers do enough in the end. I thought that opening pick on Prosper would be enough, Gore, but it just wasn't.
Historically, it's been going this way, so it maybe isn't too surprising to have it end up being another win for Yoinkers. Now 3-0 up against what you see there from ChromaSpace. And not just in maps, I mean in sets that have come through. They've gotten all three of the wins. I think ChromaSpace do showcase a lot of signs of life there at the very end, but it just feels like it takes a little too long to come online, right? So you come into this, I think you need to be able to seal the deal just a little bit faster overall if you are ChromaSpace. You need to be able to get Nepo to that point in Game 1 as opposed to waiting all the way until Game 3. I think they had a good draft there for Serpent, or not for Serpent Beach, for Splitstone Quarry, but unfortunately for them, it's just not able to do enough.
Logi and Prosper getting it done yet again.
22-14.
Yeah, just an absurd slash line from the two of them. 151,000 damage from the Vivian, and then 108,000 from Logi. And maybe it's just because this is my first year doing Paladins, but I am not comfortable with this much damage from a Nanara either. 106,000 from your front line. I guess that's just the Nara things. She's putting all that damage to the other front lines, but it's absolutely absurd. I don't think that should go uncounted for either.
I used to say this a lot, and I feel like this is a perfect moment for it. You can never underestimate the power of Inara, because she will, if you glance over her, she's more than just a tank. I mean, she does considerable shots, upwards of what am I thinking? 675 damage, I think, if you can hit all 3 pellets, maybe even more than that come through. I mean, it is a lot that comes down from her, especially for a tank that lives as long as she does and heals as much as she can, right? So being able to just sit there, I think Etsu, because of the squad around him, I mean, you're so focused on trying to kill Laji and Prosper, you get a lot of ghost damage, right? That you don't notice, but then all of a sudden is causing you trouble. That's what makes it easy to kill off ethereal damage that maybe flies over there on Nepo or onto Opim, and makes it a little easier overall for that team to seal the deal. I think this one, you know, it's easy to highlight it because whenever your carries get good slash lines, they're going to look flashy. I mean, you get highlights like this from Laji, but usually that indicates that your front line and your support are just doing an insane job, and I think that was Yoinkers. I mean, 10-1 for good reason. All 5 of them looked phenomenal that set.
Yeah, good lad and Etsu together are an impenetrable wall that is kept up with the mortar from Friezo, and then the cannons that are going over the wall, obviously coming from that backline combination, Laji and Prosper. Nigh untouchable back there. Cloud Fiesta in the rear view, though, for him, but Yoinker is not alone up there near the top. They're joined by Cloud Fiesta, who will be challenging Celestial. You'll get a chance to see those, I'm sure, when Kresnik does his matches that we'll be seeing tomorrow as well. But right now, Yoinkers, that gold standard here in Europe. Everybody else are looking at them. Next up, though, obviously going to be Brazil. Make sure to stick around to watch that matchup as well. Also going to be an interesting one there. Gore, any, I suppose, predictions for what we might expect there in Brazil, or you just think it's going to be another good set?
I just think it's going to be a good set. Brazil, they're an interesting bunch down there in the sense that as long as Parallax isn't playing, you're going to be in for something more interesting. And knowing that we are, well, going to be watching Parallax means it should be a 3-0, but because it's Carnage, right, it makes it a little more equal in my mind. I think that's the hard thing is Parallax should win it, but Carnage should give us a show.
Yeah, which one will out, right? Is it Parallax's ability to always win them, or will Carnage's ability to always hold on matter more? We'll get our chance to see a quick break, then come right back for some Brazil Paladins.